Call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for the invocation by Pastor William Wilson of the Choose United Methodist Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. We thank you, God, for this day, and we thank you for this community where we gather together with the leadership as they guide and direct our community for your good and for the good of each person who lives within this community. We thank you for the wholesomeness of this place and this community and all those public servants who give their time and service for us and for you. Bless this meeting. May it be a time of holy discussion, and we celebrate all the gifts that you give to us. For we pray this all in your blessed name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, with schedule designated time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. For use of electronic amplifier and recording device in order to obtain audible and clear record, we request all those wishing to speak be recognized to state your name and address directly into the microphone. Recording device to be solely utilized by a Township Clerk's Office shall be the official record of Township Council meetings. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
He is out with family.
Mr. Schmidt?
Present.
Mr. Seiler?
Here.
Mrs. Strata? Here. Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Bianchini?
Present.
Mr. Lechner?
Here.
Chief Earl?
Here.
Mr. Carlemere?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here. We have a presentation, National Night Out Award. Chief, Mayor. Yep.
As the council president is coming down, we wanted to take some time this evening to acknowledge the efforts of our police department, our community, in putting together our National Night Out festivities that we hold every August. So, Chief Earl, if I can ask you to join Council President Bianchini and I, and Lieutenant Barton, and Officer McLaughlin, if you could please join us. As you know, each August we come together as one community to really take a look at our neighborhoods and coming together as one community to help address policing in our community. And this year, 2014, Gloucester Township once again received first place for our National Night Out activities in the state of New Jersey. That is a really now turned into a tradition, which I'm glad that it has. But even more importantly, we are now 15th in the state of in the United States. In 2010, when I first became mayor and Chief Earl became chief, we were 26th in the nation. And so now I'm really proud that we have achieved the rank of 15th. Of course, now we're setting the bar high, Chief, and higher each year, so there's even more pressure for us to continue that trend. But this is not just about National Night Out. It's really about our overall community policing strategies here in Gloucester Township, and really the transformation of policing here in our community. This is really symbolic of that. Whether it is our bicycle units or the golf carts in our parks, or expanding our DARE program from 5th grade, also now into 7th grade, looking at all the very innovative programs that we have, handshakes, not handcuffs, our GT Vision Center that we host our social worker there. First town in the state of New Jersey to put a drug counselor in our courtroom, which I think really is leading the way to address that epidemic. But it's all those very creative programs that we have here in Gloucester Township. And I thank Chief Earl, his command staff, the men and women of Gloucester Township Police Department for what they do day in and day out. I know I am joined by Council President Bianchini and all of our council to say thank you for bringing our community together in August and year round. We had over 70 businesses participate, 26 neighborhoods that held events on their streets. We have our 6 fire companies, of course, our 4 K9 patrols and our bike patrols all came together to win first place in the state of New Jersey and 15th nationally. So, Chief, on behalf of our town council and the residents of Gloucester Township, thank you and your department for what you do. Our Community Relations Bureau each and every day interacts with our residents and really, I think, as I mentioned, transforms the policing here in Gloucester Township. So thank you so very much for what all of you do, and thanks for your leadership, Chief.
Single digits. I like single
We're going to do
digits.
single digits next year. That's great.
That's good. So I love that picture.
You guys going to be retired before he takes this, or what?
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
We'll now have the first public portion. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda items only, please raise your hand, come to the microphone. Linda?
Linda Musser, 50 Cameron Circle. Good evening, Council. I have a question on Resolution 1503-093, which is the resolution amending Resolution 1406-167, naming a redeveloper for GEMS landfill redevelopment site plan and authorizing signing of a redevelopment agreement. And it said, copy of the resolution available at the meeting. I didn't see anything until I came in here tonight on the board, and I didn't have a chance to really read it. Who is being named the redeveloper?
Anyone?
That's not that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Part of that's the GEMS landfill issue.
Yeah.
The council had appointed AM Solar as a redeveloper last year sometime, I forget when. I think it's listed in the resolution. AM Solar was purchased by an outfit called Baywa RE. It's a German solar renewable energy redeveloper, fairly big outfit. Since they were the new owner of Baywa, they still retain AM Solar as their United States representative, and the people at AM Solar are still working under Baywa as their United States division. But it was felt better by both them and by the Energy Committee that Baywa be named as a redeveloper since they are now the owner. And that's all it is. AM Solar now is a subsidiary of Baywa. We're changing resolution name Baywa.
So they're now the owner of GEMS?
No, Baywa is the owner of AM Solar.
Oh, of AM Solar, okay.
Now Baywa will be the developer.
Okay. So then the site plan and the use of the property is for solar?
The once their name is redeveloped, they're going to start pursuing the ability to put solar on the property. They want to put some solar on, how much they're not sure. They have to look at the rates, potential customers. They're looking at Camden County College's potential customer, whether it makes sense financially to connect to the network system that is run through PGN, Atlantic City Electric in this area, or to just serve Camden County College or some other areas. They've been collecting data prior to being named, prior to signing redevelopment agreement. They've been collecting data from Camden County College because that would likely be the largest customer. The way it would work, they would have a lease, be negotiated, a lease agreement would be negotiated with the township. They put their solar facilities on the landfill or on the grounds around the landfill. They would be paying the township a lease. We haven't gotten that far in negotiation.
Okay. I guess one of the questions that I have is how can GEMS be part of a redevelopment plan when the township owns the landfill and there are other responsible parties for the landfill as part of the consent decree?
Well, the consent decree, as you know, established a trust. And this is the second trust that's been established since the consent decree was entered into in federal courts. That trust is coming to an expiration, don't quote me on the date, but I think it's sometime 2015. So at that point, then New Jersey DEP, to my understanding, takes over the management and responsibility of the site. So still anything that happens on the site is still controlled by previously the trust, and in the future, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Council asked last time when we discussed this at our work agenda that they wanted some parameters put in there that gives the governing body some control. If the state says we still have responsibility for cost, we want to make sure that those costs are going to balance out to what is going to be produced by solar energy or whatever is being promoted and will be presented to not only the entity, which is the governing body, but then council as a whole for the use of the site. So there's still some checks and balances put in that. So the township is still the owner of the property, will continue to be, in a sense, the landfill will be managed by the state in the future.
Okay, so,
And actually, to add to that, the DEP has been promoting the use of landfills for solar. What's a little unusual here is that it's also a Superfund site. I know they've allowed this, and they are promoting Superfund sites too. But they've been promoting between ballast, solar panel ballast foundation. We can't manage that, but they have been pushing that throughout the state to try to have some use for these landfills once they're closed.
okay. So then the trust is going to go away after the end of this year?
I believe it's 2015, correct?
So so then the trustees that we have right now, or the other responsible parties, they'll still get paid throughout 2015?
So whatever date that the state takes over. That's my understanding of the federal decree. That's what happens in that consent decree, that the trust expires, the state then has full control of the asset.
But we don't know if the state's going to do that yet.
Well, we don't know if they're going to say that the mission of the trust is not being completed, there's still studies, we don't know what position the state's going to take, and no one knows. I don't think that the parameters of that have been set out by the consent decree, so if you read the consent decree, that's the date that's supposed to be completed. If there's still unfinished work under the mission that the trust had, that might be one of the extending factors. I don't believe it should, but that's the court to decide if there's an issue there. That's why when council approved the resolution amending it, this time they wanted certain exceptions put in there that gives the governing body a right not to enter into this agreement, but there's still going to be cost or increased cost that might be imposed on the township.
Okay.
And as it states here, the signing of this agreement will be contingent upon the township redevelopment entity and council being satisfied with those three items that are at the back of this So we wanted to make sure that we understood who's going, if there's another cash call or anything like that after the state takes over, how's that going to affect the monies that are being generated, et cetera. So that's why we put that in there, to make sure that the township is protected.
Okay. Okay, because I guess one of the other questions, you know, as a follow-up to the solar, how, if the state decides that the work isn't done, or that, you know, the responsibility of the township isn't alleviated at that point in time, and the project moves forward with putting solar, and if, for whatever reason, depending on, you know, I forget what Mr. Cantwell said that they would use, but if they were to put the type of a solar panel or something that would penetrate that cap, whose liability would it be? Would it be all of the responsible parties, or could the state come back and say, hey, Gloucester Township, you own this, it's on you, and then the taxpayers are stuck with another bill?
I don't believe that this AM Solar or Baywatt is going to have the authority to put anything on that landfill at whatever stage they are, either as the trust, without the trust agreeing to the project, or once DEP takes over without DEP agreeing to the project. So once they step in, and I'll talk about the state, once the state steps in and has control of the gem site, they're going to have to give consent and approval to whatever goes on the landfill as part of this project. Once that's done, it's their responsibility. They're giving consent. They have oversight. It becomes their responsibility. If for some reason they go to court and want to change that, that's why council wanted something put in there that if there's this project causes additional cost to the township, forgetting about the other settling defendants, council has a right not to do this.
Okay. Okay. Do we have an accounting of where the money went for the cash call? There were actually two. There was one in 2010, and then there was another one last year, I believe in August, maybe September of last year, towards the end, you know.
I believe we were given that itemized where the money went.
Was that the, was that the GEMS Phase 2 project, the 10-year O&M? Because there was a 10-year O&M that was given, but that was the, I don't know that there wasn't anything that I recall that showed the cash call itself and and then the additional one as far as where the monies were expended, what they went for. And I thought they were done were they bonds? They done as?
Yes, they were done by bonds. The most recent call, my recollection was, it was for a horizontal well that was being drilled. And I believe they provided all that documentation of the previous cash calls and the most recent cash calls, I believe, to your office, and you may have those up there. I may have copies also.
It goes back a bit of time. If they came in to me, I would not have reviewed them on the financial side and stuff.
Well, I know that at a previous meeting, especially that August meeting when that second cash call came up, I know I had questioned it at that time because the previous cash call from 2010, the taxpayers were told that this was a one-time cash call. And now all of a sudden there was another cash call, so the one time, you know, it was, well, where did the money go? And the documentation, after asking for it, I believe at least twice, was, it was an O&M for a 10-year period.
Yeah, you know what, Dave, my recollection serves me correct. When we requested that information from the trust, and you did that formally by letter, I don't know that we received a response in terms of an actual cost accounting of where those monies have been spent. I believe what they provided us was their audit information, and I believe she's correct that it was.
Yeah, and then, right, because then there were it was a two-page report, and the other was the projected expenditures from August 2010 through July of 2014. And it was, you know, different things on there, but really nothing that would match up with the money that the cash call was versus the expenditures over that 10-year
Again,
period.
without having it in front of me, it sounds correct, from my recollection, what you're saying is correct.
Okay. So there are still monitoring wells on the property, correct?
That is my understanding.
Okay. And are they still being tested?
Yes, I
I would
believe
think
they
so.
are.
Okay. Do we know how often they're being tested?
Can't answer that.
I don't
We
believe
need
it.
answers to that.
Do we know who tests them?
Under the trust right now, it's the engineering and under the trust that has responsibility for that and accountability to the state.
Okay.
And if you remember the MUA and the GTO.
The CCMUA, correct?
Gets the results as well.
Okay. So when the tests are done, where do they send those results? Who receives those?
Well, I know the MUAs, both MUAs get results from, I know GTMUA does.
Okay.
I don't know if the township gets anything at this point.
I couldn't answer that. If I had to get an answer, I would say, what Council President said, I don't believe it comes this way. I believe it goes to the state, GTMUA, CCMUA,
Obviously, the trust would have it.
and the trust.
Do they still have the repository here in the township with all the documentation regarding gems?
They should, they should.
Well, shouldn't a copy go there? And shouldn't council get a copy of that? I mean, this is something that, in my opinion, is, I think, from a standpoint of a safety issue, to make sure that there haven't been any spikes with any radionuclides or with any of the water, anything in the water.
If there was, then the MUAs would both be lending us a no. I know I see a copy of the one that GTMUA gets, and everyone I've looked at, there was no issue that I could tell. And I'm not an expert in looking at it. I just look to see what the levels are, and if they're falling within whatever prescribed amounts that they want. So I think those entities are the ones, the experts, that would be looking at it, and if there was an issue, we would obviously know.
Okay. Well, if we have a trustee, shouldn't a copy of that also be sent to the trustee? And shouldn't that trustee be the responsible person that should be required to give a report to the governing body, so that the governing body could in turn give a report to the residents to give them assurances that everything is okay over there, rather than leave it to chance?
Well, I think everything is okay, but I would, through our solicitor, ask him to reach out and get.
Each of the settling defendants, the trustees are made up of representatives of each of the settling defendants. And although their responsibility functions as a trustee, in the consent decree, each of their appointment gives them a responsibility and obligation to report, in this case to the governing body, if there are any issues. Documents are supposed to be deposited. We can reach out to our representative, that's on there, our trustee, appointed by this governing body, for a response or an update from whatever. And if there are issues that develop either on the financial side or the testing side, that's the responsibility of each of the trustees to report to the settling defendants.
Okay, because the trustees get paid a nice amount of money for being a trustee. And I think that the very least that they could do is, an item like this, that's this important, that's on an agenda tonight, I really fail to see how the documentation that's sitting up on the board couldn't have been part of the agenda, so that people would have had an opportunity to read it and understand what it's about. And I think that at the very least, he could have been here tonight to be able to address any concerns that any of the residents may have. As a trustee, he should be, he should be on top of these things, at least know that, how frequently do they meet? Does he report back to council? It just seems like, it seems like there's a lot of questions that are unanswered.
Well, this resolution only changes the name of the authorized intended redeveloper from AM Solar to their now parent company, Baywa. So this is really just administrative or housekeeping. What has changed in this resolution from the original resolution when AM Solar was appointed is now the governing body has the conditions in this one that were not in the other, as to the cost of the project from Baywa forward, if that has any impact on the township.
Okay.
All this does is change the name from AM Solar to Baywa.
Does the CCMUA still do testing there, Mr. Bianchini?
I don't think the CCMUA does anything.
Not there, but the water that ran to CCMUA, because there's like 22 miles of pipe that goes to the Delaware River.
I don't know, Linda, but I can get you that answer.
Okay, because at one point in time, Andy Crick, and I don't know if is he still the executive director, chief engineer? Okay.
Of the
MUA, right, CCMUA. I know that he used to provide reports. So that's why I was wondering if they still did the testing and if we had any reports and if everything was still good. And is Mr. Cricken still chair on the planning board also?
I believe he is, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, would the planning board be reviewing the redevelopment plan, or would they just be looking at it as a courtesy?
We'll come to the redevelopment entity first.
Mhm.
I would imagine there would be a report to the planning board for what they're going to do up on the planning hearing before the planning board also, I think.
Okay. Okay.
But those redevelopment things come to the entity first before they go to the planning board.
Okay, all right. I think that's it. Thank you.
Pete?
Pete Heinball, Morningstar Court, Sicklerville. A couple of agenda questions. For an agenda question, I just also wanted to congratulate the police department for their award and just further mention, some police departments around the country are making negative headlines right now. Ferguson being the big name, but New York City had and things like that. You never hear any kind of headlines or any kind of newsworthy negative stories coming out of our township or the police department. And I just want to commend the police department for that. And its progressive programs with the addiction programs and the community outreach programs. I think it's positive. Agenda item, first on the bill list, there was one rather large item for Remington and Vernick, $16,645. And it was listed as an on-site inspection for the premium outlets. Just wondered, since that was a fairly large amount, just wondered if there's a further explanation, what's involved in an on-site
Yeah, I don't have an explanation of the bill. I would defer to Mr. Cantwell, but as you know, it's a large complex,
Yeah.
and $40 million development. So I know there are a lot of stores, and they are pressing forward to try to stay with the grand opening in August of 2015. Quite a bit of work up there.
Okay, so this was a physical inspection. Remington and Vernick had,
This is, there is some office time involved with that, but it's primarily for the inspectors being on the site. I don't know if it was, I don't have a copy of that bill, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 months, but they are pushing. We typically, things will slow down again in February, but that bill list is probably for December and January. We have 2 inspectors on the site frequently. They're doing a lot of work. They're pushing hard. They have this done for August. And 90% of it's for the field inspections, and 5 or 10% probably for the office back looking at.
right, okay, thank you.
It all comes out of the escrow account, the development.
Yes.
It's none of it's township.
Right. And I do have a question regarding this escrow account. This bill and others like it are charged to this project just by the number. It's 8654. And would that project number cover any and all? I guess my question is this premium outlet project broken out into different project numbers, or anything, whether it's land or buildings or engineering, architecture, is it all under that one number?
Yeah, Mr. Lechner is here, so I would defer to Mr. Lechner.
That four-digit number is an escrow number, that the funds come from the developer, it goes into an escrow account, and then the bills are, the invoices are submitted from the engineer to that escrow. So
And it's
that's a
just-
four-digit escrow that's generated by our software program.
So really my question, though, that's the one and only number, though, related to the premium outlets. There's no,
Actually, I think there's three escrows for premium outlets. One is for on-site improvements, one is for off-site improvements, and one is for, I think, the capital. I think there's three.
There's off-site and there's on-site, I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe there's only two then, off-site and on-site.
Right, the MUA has their own number, their own escrow. Also, so you're aware, when we send the bill to the township, a copy goes to the developer also. So they're seeing it at the same time. If they see anything amiss on it, they invite you to come to the township
do,
and ask
okay.
for information.
okay, thank you. Another question on the AXA, the retirement accounts that are being set up for workers, the income deferral retirement accounts. That's not to replace pensions or anything like that, that's over and above pensions?
It's a voluntary 457 plan. Right now, we offer another plan, which is through MetLife, so this will be another plan to supplement that. And again, it's voluntary, so anybody wanting to contribute can make that option.
So they already have an income deferral. MetLife is already available as an income
Yes,
deferral.
yeah,
This is the
many
second
of our
one.
employees, contribute to MetLife.
And this is just to give employees more options, is the second one?
Another option,
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
And I believe they're prevalent in this area.
Yeah. Does the township get any kind of commission or fee or anything from either, or from MetLife or from these? Any kind of, nothing? And there's no cost to the township, which was mentioned in the agenda
No
item.
cost to the
Right.
township.
Okay, my last question is regarding the budget. I see that it's on the agenda as a resolution for the first time today. But I also think I saw there was a budget hearing on the 25th.
There was a departmental hearing. It's required under the Faulkner Act. Different departments are permitted to waive their attendance at such hearing. It's an opportunity for the mayor, myself, and the CFO to review each departmental budget and review the various expenditure accounts. It's primarily for the other expenses, not for the salary and wages.
Okay, but it wasn't a public hearing, it was department heads and,
No, it's advertised. Anybody from the public can attend, yeah. But
Okay.
it's rather brief, to be honest with you. And again, it's part of the requirements under the Faulkner Act Plan B.
I would imagine there weren't any public attendees at the hearing.
I didn't see any.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't even aware, I keep track pretty good. I never saw it as an item on the agenda or on the website. I have seen it after the fact now. I went back and saw it as advertised in the newspaper, but I guess I missed it. I just think it should be more routine to, and anything advertised in the paper, why not put it on the website? Why not put it on somewhere on the agenda just as a note even, and vice versa, if it's only advertised on the website. Also, just put it on the agenda.
Yeah, as I indicated, the departments are permitted to waive that hearing. And so in our particular case, we did have a hearing with the chief on the police budget. And as acting public works director, I covered the public works department.
So the timing, I guess, will be, the budget timing process, the timing of the process will be similar as last year. We'll have hearings going, still be
I don't
public
want to
hearings.
comment before we get to that portion of the agenda tonight. But, yeah.
Okay. All right, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. Ray?
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidor, Ariel.
Good evening, Ray.
A couple follow-up questions on Resolution 1503-093. On the redevelopment, and if you should move forward with the solar project, who will be paying for this project?
The project, paying for the project will be completely with the redeveloper. The township won't have any funds into it. And the redevelopers agreement, once it's settled, they're supposed to reimburse you now for any mod fees or costs or Blue Sky Power is being to us and putting all this together and assisting them with giving this process.
So the solar company will put
Pick up all the tasks.
the capital, and then how will they make it back?
Well, they're going to, if it all goes through, they'll be paying Radcliffe Township to use the land. They'll be making their money by selling the energy they produce, either to hopefully Kevin County College, is what they're trying to do. And also, if it works out, the economics work out, tying into the system, the net, and making money from Atlantic City Electric, if they're supplying them.
So in lieu
And
of,
there's also, since they're a private entity, there are tax credits they get and other issues that figure in planning. And Ray, it's beyond my ability to figure out how all the tax incentives work and make this a profit. But they do make a profit out of it.
okay, so this will be more of a rent lease type deal with a solar company coming in, producing electricity and selling it, where just the
We're just landlord.
landlord. Okay. One other question is, now that we have solar panels all over every school in the township just about, is it true that any of the schools in this township are charging the township back rent for the solar panels on their property?
No, that's false.
I'm sorry?
That's false.
Okay, that is false.
But the schools are reaping the benefits of the energy savings on their utility bills.
Okay, and all of the projects that are on the school property are solely for that particular school?
Absolutely.
Okay, now during the summertime, when that energy is not being utilized by the school, where is that power, where's it going to, and who's benefiting from that during the downtime of the schools?
I'm not sure, Ray. I don't know if any of that goes back to the grid or if that's just available for their use and that's it. But I do know that what's out by the schools is going to the schools to offset their utility bills.
Okay, so being the conversation we had previously with the schools on that, where the Gloucester Township School District is still at a shortfall with us, 60,000, should they be benefiting from that production of electricity during the summer months? There again lies another situation with who laid out the capital, who's benefiting, and why.
Well, there was no cost to Gloucester Township taxpayers for the installation of those solar panels. That was done under PPA with Marina, and Marina absorbed all costs. So there is no cost. The benefit is to all the taxpayers in as much as reducing the expenses for the school, which is a large portion of your property tax bill.
Now, that was Marina had taken the cost, or was that in the way of a grant? That's how I understood that.
They paid for the installation of everything. Am I correct, Mr. Canwell?
Yes, as far as I know, I wasn't directly involved with that, but they attend a lot of meetings. They pay for the installation. I think there's a charge they give to the school, but it's at a rate much less than what the utility company charges the schools. That's how they make the money from that rate they charge.
But that's, again, that's a saving over what they would pay the utility company.
Okay. Some time ago, the project was proposed, of putting a solar project on the GEMS landfill, and if I remember correctly, I surely remember correctly, that this body had derailed that under the circumstances of I guess you're concerned for the compromising the cap. Also, there was an issue with Swamp Pink that helped derail that project back when the XREC was of great value. What's changed between then and now that makes this so palatable that wasn't back then when council had very much opposed this project?
Well, Ray, I could tell you for me, the company came in from Washington off the train and said, we're going to put $30-40 million into that and, sign this lease and give us this lease for a small amount of money. And to me, that never added up. At that time, we didn't have the knowledge that we have now. And so every time we questioned that individual, we never got a straight answer. And so, in my mind, if he's gonna put $40 million into our area, he's making something out of it, and I wanted us to do diligence and make sure that if there's a way of making more money for for the residents, then we should do it. And you know, over time, as you said, the SRECs change over time, and so now this is a better way of doing it.
Okay.
We still have the cap that we worry about. We still have, I'm sure, swamp pig out there, but there is a portion of that of the dump that I don't remember the acreage, but there is a portion in which they could start out with, and I believe they are going to look at that to start out
We're
with.
probably starting to just, part of the property was never really in landfill, and that's where they're going to concentrate first. I don't think, other than protecting the cat, the top of the landfill doesn't have other environmental issues like swamp pig, that could be used.
Did I understand you correctly? You said the swamp pink is not a concern right now?
I don't believe there's any swamp pig on top of the landfill. But I understand it's down in the lower areas where the water sits. That's what-
There wasn't at the last time that the project didn't move forward.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bianchini, I'm sure you remember that Mr. Burkhart from Washington DC had proposed for that plan that in order for the investors to make their money back on the project, there would be a pie, and that every one of the investors would get theirs back on a slice of the pie, including Gloucester Township would have an equal slice of that. So at the time, I do remember that being beneficial to the township, especially with a high XREC value at the time.
Well, I don't remember, to be honest with you, Ray, but I know that they were proposing, and maybe Mr. Schmidt or Mr. Mercado may remember, but it just didn't add up to me that someone's willing to come in, don't know anything about it, about our property, about what's there, what's not there, couldn't give us guarantees that there wouldn't be any piercings of the cap. It just didn't, to me at that time, didn't add all up.
And
I remember-
The lease was also blank as to what amount of dollars would be paid to the township of Gloucester. When they were questioned, they said, well, that is an open-end, the lease still requires negotiation. Another reason why we would.
I thought I remember Mr. Burkhart including in the structure that a sled type structure that would lay on top of the cap and not pierce the cap. And
He might have, but he was not offering the township any dollars on the lease signed as an open-end blank that he would negotiate in the future.
And I believe, Ray, they also talked about settling of the cap and when to do it, when not to do it. So there was just a lot in my mind, a lot of unanswered questions.
does council remember bringing in Ray Angelini to give his assessment of what might be a palatable idea for that? And I don't remember that going anywhere at that time, and that was at the request of council.
Yeah, no,
And what was the reason that was declined?
I don't remember off the top of my head, Ray, but yeah, I do remember bringing him in and asking his advice, his opinion on it.
Understood. And my last question is, I remember you responding to Ms. Musser that the GTMUA would get the results of the readings from GEMS. Now, is there any concern from this council and the liaison to the GTMUA that these readings are being submitted to GTMUA with an operator of only a Cert 3? Is he qualified to make a determination on these readings? And are we absolutely sure? Because I'm sure that this temporary extension of courtesy from the DEP, which is due to expire in April, this will be moving forward. And how are we expected to know that the person reading or taking these readings and making a determination on them at the GTMUA is going to be qualified to make a well-educated decision on this, and what confidence does this body have?
Well, the GTMUA, Ray, has an agreement with an individual, Rick Eustace to be exact, he has that certification, if I'm saying it appropriately, a certification that Mr. Carr is testing for as we speak. So from my understanding, the state approved how they were handling this situation with Mr. Carr, and I know Rick Eustace has been contracted with to assist Ray.
Where did Mr. Eustace come from?
Where did he come from? He's a Gloucester Township resident.
And he possesses a cert for?
Executive Director, Ray, at I want to say Bordentown MUA. Don't quote me on that, but I know he's an executive director. He also was down in Vineland for a while.
He worked with Mr. Palmer now.
Yeah, I think he did. I'm not sure what his role down there was. I don't know, do you know him?
No, but I know that he worked with Mr. Palmer for many years.
Yeah, so he's very qualified and good.
When saying he's very qualified, does that mean he does possess a level 4 certification?
Who, Mr. Eustace?
Yes.
Yes, he does.
Okay. All right. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. President and Council. I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to be back.
Can you name and...
Oh, sorry. Joe Reed from Millbridge Homes. I have a question about a different resolution here that when I first read it, I quite frankly thought it was kind of trivial. And then realized that it's given the same weight as every resolution that's been discussed tonight, or it wouldn't be on this agenda. The township's invested money in it, in designing it and creating it. The members have read it until the board members, elected members, have read it until they're confident they can discuss it. And last but not least, our solicitor and his team have invested a lot of money in it. And it discusses, in the Reader's Digest title of it, bird feeders. I'd just like to get through it. I have a couple questions about the definitions and results and what this resolution, which will soon be law.
Well, this is an ordinance. It's going on for first reading. This will have its own public hearing at next meeting.
Okay. So eventually, it has the potential of becoming a law, correct, Mr. President? In the section titled Bird Wildlife Feeding, I'd like to know the definition of excessive feeding.
Where
Right here.
I mean, bird wildlife feeding. The first page.
Excessive feeding of bird, wildlife, in residential area?
Yes. I'm sorry, I should read. This addresses bird feeders in residential areas, within 300 feet of a residential area.
So
Or
there's-
district.
under definitions, there's excessive feeding, which means spreading, casting, lying, depositing, or dumping of feed on any property other than as permitted by this ordinance.
Okay, well, that's my second.
Well, the issue, you probably weren't here at the past meetings, when there was a resident making complaints. Not only did the code enforcement do inspections, there were several.
Not to cut you short, but I have limited time, but I'm not questioning the value of it being here. If it didn't have value, it wouldn't be on this agenda, I would assume. Is that correct?
Well, we felt, Joe, that the residents came probably over a course of 3-4 months requesting us.
I'm sorry. That doesn't, I assume that's correct, that there's some value where the council would not be wasting the township's tax
Right, there
dollars
is some
for
value.
this, correct? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but excessive feeding is a result of the actions defined in means of spreading, casting, light. It doesn't define excessive as a result of an action, correct?
Well, the action would be if they're spreading.
So that's the action. So what defines it as being excessive?
Well, when you're laying or spreading excessive amount of feed,
But isn't that-
you're allowing a
that's
lot
subjective.
of animals.
What's a lot? That's subjective.
Well, a lot of this is subjective, and our inspectors would go out
Who
and
inspects it?
talk to, I'm sorry?
Who inspects it? Who's coming into this residential property to inspect the bird feeders?
Well, if there's a complaint, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, it would be the code enforcement. Code enforcement.
Okay. So that, we still don't know, do we agree that the word excessive could be subjective?
Sure.
And that's up to the, that's up to the code inspector's definition of excessive, correct? Whose qualifications are subjective, correct?
They're used to seeing things.
The amount of bird seed that should be in a bird feed.
Well, again, if you have what happened, if you have a pool, like a baby pool,
Right.
and they're filling it with birdseed, I think that's excessive.
I think that a reasonable person would agree to that.
Yeah. I think those are a good term, Joe, a reasonable
Okay.
person.
Which again is subjective. Platform feeders. We define the distance inside the property, which I think is commendable. Define, to some extent, what animal is considered domestic. But what we don't define is what minimum distance from a structure entrance can this be?
It's not
This is one of the topics of this, as I read it, is safety. Now, it doesn't define safety to people or to birds or to both or what, but it would seem possible to me that if the bird feeder was a foot or two away from an entrance, that if a bird was there and little old lady came out and the bird flew away, that the little old lady could fall and get hurt, correct?
Well, it must be 10 feet inside the property line.
It doesn't say, right, it says inside the property line, but it does not define the distance from a structure entrance.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay? Prohibition. How is the seed on the ground determined that it was placed there other than spillage from when a bird was eating? That's not defined either. So we could have a sloppy bird come into our bird feeder, spill it all over the ground. This doesn't define. You would assume, and I would be penalized and fined, although that's not defined in here either, is defined as, is the chief's men going to take me away in handcuffs? Am I going to be fined $2? It doesn't give any scope of what the repercussions are. Correct? I mean, maybe I overlooked it.
Go ahead.
So you don't disagree?
Again,
We've already established that everyone has read it and understands it, correct?
right, Joe, we
Okay.
read it, we went through it
Understand.
with the solicitor, and again, the intent of this is to control over excessive feeding of wild animals
On residential property.
on residential property, correct, where it affects other residents. This isn't just someone having a little bit of feed and it's dropping out of the bird feeder or whatever. This is somebody who's
But see,
laying
that's
big
subjective, too.
containers of feed, and now it's affecting
It
residents.
doesn't really say, it says 10 ounces. So, it could, there's people like me, for some reason, I think I know why, you don't really care, but if a bird flies around me, I can't move. There's very few things that I'm really afraid of right away. Bird flew in here, I'd stand here till the bird left. I can't move.
I know a lot of people
So,
like that.
no, I don't know, it doesn't matter. So it matters to me whether this and people like me, whether this is so close to a structure door that it could scare me, I couldn't move.
Mhm.
But it's not defined in here. So maybe the bill's kind of lacking.
Well, that's the purpose of an ordinance having a public hearing. to
Right,
hear these
I agree.
kind of
I understand,
To hear these kind of comments. So-
I understand, correct.
So that's when it's appropriate with the township, whether it's going to adopt it on second reading, or then it becomes law.
Well, I guess that's where we're
Public
headed.
hearing.
Next question is on item A under prohibition. It says create an unclean, unsafe, or unsightly condition. I assume that the same code inspector has been somehow trained about inspecting bird feeders can tell when it's unsightly.
Well, they do. They
Defines that.
address a lot of unsightly conditions, and it's not just bird feeds. It could be how people leave their properties, et cetera.
But I could paint it fluorescent orange and have a spotlight on it, and that would be okay?
Could be.
Okay. Again, we use an excessive accumulation of droppings. Well, I don't like birds, as we've already established, so if there's one dropping, to me, it's excessive. And I'm a reasonable person.
Mhm.
So that's left undefined. Pests, excessive pests. I've known a lot of pests, and a lot of them are human.
True.
But it doesn't define what a pest is.
Well, I think we all know when it comes to pest what we're talking about here. But that's fine, Joe.
What's an unreasonable disturbance?
An unreasonable disturbance.
What is that?
Something that's disturbing residents and neighbors.
You can't
that's
define a
unreasonable.
word with that word. What's an
Excuse
unreasonable?
me, I'm giving you my definition.
But you can't define a word with that word.
Okay, but that was my definition.
Okay, so that remains undefined.
Not necessarily.
With one phone call today, I found out that a half-inch size in a bird feeder opening will prohibit most birds from getting in there. So what standard did we use to come up half an inch? Did we flip a coin, or did our engineer have some specifications that he used to come up with that dimension?
You had,
What we did is we took several ordinances, not only from New Jersey, but from throughout. Again, if you were here at prior meetings.
Well,
you would have heard
unfortunately, I wasn't able to be.
Okay.
So I guess we have to
If
explain
you were
it
here at
to
prior
you.
meetings, you would have heard the comments
I wasn't
that it
here.
is a difficult ordinance that the public, those that were here, that were requesting this ordinance to be adopted, or some form of this ordinance, because there are things that could be subjective. So what we did, through the help of the clerk's office and my office, we researched outside of the state of New Jersey to try to come up with ordinances that were similar. You'd be surprised how many ordinances are out there outside of
I
New Jersey.
frankly would be, yeah.
How many ordinances that are out there outside of New Jersey that deal with excessive bird feeding? We took the language to the best we could to incorporate it in an ordinance that was addressing the specific concerns of the residents. They talked about excessive feeding. They had photographs of bird seed thrown all over driveways, in kids' swimming pools that were filled with bird seed.
It's got to be the exception. Does someone bird feed in a plastic kid's pool? Is that prominent in Gloucester Township?
It was in this country.
It can't be prominent. There might be one. Let's go hog wild and say there were two. I asked her, oh, wait a minute, not.
So Joe, are you saying that we don't need this ordinance?
That's absolutely incorrect.
I'm
I
just
qualified
asking
that when I stood up here. I think it's a resolution. A resolution is a resolution. A law is an ordinance. An ordinance is an ordinance which ultimately will become a law. A law is a law. So each one has the same weight. I'm just saying that this is lacking, and maybe it should be tabled.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Evening, Council. Robert Kolakowski, Glen Oaks. The one question I have, and I was at the previous meetings where the residents spoke about the excessive feeding of her neighbor and the problems that it caused for her property. And I took it to mean that we were looking to curb the excessive feeding of animals. Now, before we had our dog, my wife, if there was, the ends of breads, she would go out and, throw it in the backyard to feed the birds. However, in the prohibition section, it says no bird seed, grain, nuts, crumbs, scraps, or any form of bird food or other foods intended to attract and feed bird or other wildlife shall be thrown or scattered on the ground or any property. Ground feeding is prohibited except contained in an approved platform feeder. That would make what my wife did against the law. However, I don't think that would be excessive feeding. So it seems like we're curbing the excessive feeding by just prohibiting it completely, the way that I read that.
And I understand how you read that, but again, I think a reasonable action by throwing some breadcrumbs or ends of bread, out to the birds is one thing. If it's attracting other undesirable animals that are causing problems for the rest of your neighborhoods, or the rest of your residents there, your neighbors, then I think that's a different story. I don't think throwing a couple pieces of bread is going to.
And neither do I, but the way that it's written,
No, and I respect that.
that's what it's saying. I mean, it's, if you're having a backyard party and some of the hot dog buns or burgers or whatever fall on the ground, I mean, that would be included in it too. I mean, so again, I do agree that excessive feeding should be prohibited. However, I think it needs to be worded much more succinctly because again, the way it's read, it prohibits all feeding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, sorry. Anyone else? See no other hands. Close the first public portion. Bid report?
Gloucester Township Municipal Pool Improvements Project.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes. Ordinance of first reading. Ordinance O-15-06. Ordinance amending Chapter 67A of the Code Book of the Township of Gloucester entitled Property Maintenance Code, Article 4, Responsibilities of Owners and Operators applicable to all properties and enforcement. This, as was discussed prior, this ordinance will allow the responsibility and the enforcement of excessive feeding to wild animals. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes. Ordinance O-15-07. Ordinance amending Chapter 81, Section 31, entitled Speed Limits of the Code of the Township of Gloucester to establish speed limit reduction along Lower Landing Road in the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden County, State of New Jersey. This resolution will lower the speed limit on Lower Landing Road from 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. Motion to adopt. On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes. Now I'll have resolutions of consent agenda. Any council person wishing to remove any of these, please let me know now.
President, I make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion and a second. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Resolution 92, resolution introducing the 2015 calendar year budget.
As the title states, this resolution introduces the 2015 calendar year budget. This budget has a zero tax increase, and it'd be the fifth time, I believe, Tom, 6 years. Is that correct? Or? Yes. So I applaud the administration as well as Tom, your office, and all the folks who worked on that.
Yeah, it just a clarification, it is a zero increase on the levy, on the amount that we reappraised, because a variation of an assessed value could create a change one way or another with regard to the rate.
And this is just for the municipality.
This is only for the
Correct. Motion to adopt.
Second?
On the question?
This means just that property owners, they will not have tax increase.
There will not be an increase to the levy for the local property tax rate. Yes. But, just clarification, Mr. Seiler, if your assessed value changes, then it could change the amount of your tax bill. You file an appeal, it goes down, your bill goes
But
down.
the amount that is charged against or times against
Will be the same
will be
as
the
last
same.
year.
Correct.
The amount to be raised by taxation, the levy.
Okay.
Then we'll have a public hearing on this.
Yeah, I'm asking that you set the public hearing date for April 13th.
Council, okay? Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Resolution 93, resolution amending resolution R-14:06-167, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Gloucester, Camden County, New Jersey, naming redeveloper for the Jens landfill redevelopment site plan area, and authorizing the signing of a redevelopment agreement. memorandum agreement. Copy of resolution available at the meeting, which it was posted on the board evening.
This resolution, as stated and as discussed earlier, changes the redeveloper from AmSolar to the new owner, which is BayWa. And they're still calling the company in the United States, though, AmSolar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the one.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotta?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Beaky?
Yes.
Resolution 94, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Gloucester, Camden County, New Jersey, authorizing the award of a contract pursuant to New Jersey statutes 40A:11-12, state contract.
Okay, this is a walk-on because Mr. Cardis has a state contract that for this service and for this children's playground equipment. The equipment that we're replacing, and the reason I authorize it to be placed on this as a walk-on is that the equipment needs to be replaced. There's some safety issues with that
There are
equipment.
some concerns at this point.
Right. So that is why, and Tom gave had everybody with the information, the quotes, and all the companies. So I think it's important that we try to get this started. I would agree. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotta?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Beaky?
Yes. We do not have any GTE Gov access questions, so we'll open up to the public. Anybody wishing to speak on any subject, please raise your hand, come to the microphone. Mr. Owens?
Scott Owens, One Bellissimo Court, on the aerial section. First, Chief Earl, congrats on another successful National Night Out. And Council, congrats on another zero tax increase for the budget. Mr. Cardis, I do have a question about that. So with the zero tax increase, and I know you spoke about it a little, but just elaborate a little more, what does that mean for the average homeowner in Gloucester Township, having a 0%?
Yeah, I mean, the average assessment, and people would differ on their opinion of what it should be, but it's about $195,000. So when we're talking about this budget being the same amount to be raised as last year, so they should see no change in that tax bill. The only change would be if the assessment changed for some reason, but it should stay the same from one year to the next. Now, that is just our portion of the bill, which represents about 26%. The rest of it, we don't control. It's the schools in the township.
So that's a great thing for homeowners in the township. And one more question, if I may. So I've been reading a lot from, obviously in the state, I guess for the past 7 times in the past 4 or 5 years, the bond rating has been downgraded, the Moody's bond rating throughout different townships throughout the state, as well as Pennsylvania and different states. What is Gloucester Township's bond rating, and how does that affect residents?
So you're right, the state went down, the township did not. We'll go for another rating probably in 2016 when we permanently finance. You get a rating every time you permanently finance. So you have a bunch of ordinances, you take out notes, and eventually you just combine them all into a permanent finance, which is about maybe 13 years or 14 years, depending on the maturity schedule. We had an upgrade in 2012. Standard & Poor's gave us an upgrade from an A to an A+, which is great to get an upgrade. So we have stated that A+ since that upgrade in 2012. Hopefully we can get some consideration for another upgrade. Some of the things, one of the things that they look for is your surplus balance. Our surplus balance is healthy at this point. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, and thank you for what you guys do.
Ray, thank you.
Good evening, and Council Ray Paldo Ario. I will be brief. For Public Works, what makes the determination between Public Works time and a half and double time? Is there a limit to what they make, maybe 8 hours, 10, 14 hours at time and a half before they go to double time?
You know, Ray, I'm not positive, so I'd have to look at it to get back to you. I believe it's after a certain number of hours over 40. And I want to say it's either an hour and a half or 2 hours after 40, then they go to the, I'd rather look at it and get back to you, if you don't mind.
Not a problem. And if you wouldn't mind, my question is alluding to the amount of overtime of Public Works, and I will commend the job they've done on snow removal on the small streets, on the dead-end streets, but at what cost? And my concern would be the amount of overtime should 8 hours of time and a half then go to double time. That valuable fifth day of the week that we all work that Public Works doesn't now becomes a time and a half day. So for the last consecutive weekends or so that we've had snow removal or need for salt or brine, that Friday that we all work would be time and a half for Public Works. At that point, when they're working Friday, does Saturday and Sunday become double time, or is that just added on time and a half? It's a lot of hours of overtime when Friday was a normal work day for most of us.
Again, I'd have to look at it, but if you're working Monday through Friday, as you know, you're going to have a shorter work day, so you would have overtime experience if there was a snow event during that period also, if they have to stay at night.
Understood. And again, I'm paying compliments while I'm concerned about that fifth work day and
I
8 hour straight time versus time and a half. And
I know
it's a
I'm
question.
a horse in the race, but I have to say I think that Public Works did a great job. You know, this was our first time that we called out private contractors. Unfortunately, it was needed. Once we went past 3.5, 4 inches, we had to call the private.
And again, in the past, when we had our bigger storms last year, they had come through the neighborhoods and come through again as the snow continued on. So there's compliments there as well as a concern for the amount of hours at overtime.
Right, excuse me?
Yeah.
The overtime, isn't that all part of the negotiated contract?
It is. It's under the contract. But we don't control that.
Well, we do.
We do, we're calling them out.
But we also control when we negotiate.
Correct.
Go ahead, man.
Not a problem. This is just a basic question because I've heard of it and I'm asking it simply in a very respectful way. Is there any investigations going on to the township's knowledge into the GTMUA at this time, or knowledge of it in the very near future?
The only thing I know, Ray, is that I asked our solicitor to request to have a conversation with GTMUA solicitor. He's requested a list of items, and our solicitor informed me today that he just received them this afternoon. So he will be going through that information and reporting to the council.
Okay. I don't know if in that investigation, maybe I'm not privy to the answer to this, and maybe I'm making something suggestive in a question form, but maybe included in that investigation is, it was asked of the MUA, or GTMUA, in the past and reemphasized only recently about the former operator and the amount of, I believe, 1,000 hours overtime. And the solicitor at the GTMUA had said that there was nothing in the contract prohibiting that. Now, for those of the people that I handed the contract to that are more knowledgeable than myself, it appears that 1,000 hours overtime equating to near $30,000, in and about $30,000. The statement that solicitor made at the GTMUA may or may not be distinguished the same as those that have read that. That being the case, the understanding of those that have read that state in his contract, Mr. Benson's contract, that he's entitled to comp time and not a money value to those overtime hours. And that would be nice if we could get an answer to that, because it seems to be, we seem to be hearing a different language coming from the GTMUA solicitor.
He was the prior executive director.
Yes, because a resident had asked, and I think someone that had knowledge of the MUA had asked about the reimbursement of those 1,000 overtime hours, because it did not seem that it was warranted in that contract at the time. and that was never asked about, and I'm sure.
Okay, okay. And then I believe that executive director had a contract with you, so if you could, I'll send that and then we can get back to you.
Okay. And my last question is on the flowers that were just bestowed upon you recently. Last year, did we or did we not have an 8% increase in our tax?
I don't have the percentage. I believe it was, in terms of cents, it was approximately 7.5 cents.
Okay, and was that not achieved from 0 increases for 4 consecutive years that we banked? And there was 4 years that were 0 increases that, once again, the flowers were thrown all over the place. That was banked and we caught up on all those increases that we didn't have. Is that correct?
I don't have a detail of what portion of last year's increase was allowable and then what portion would have involved any of the bank that we had. I can find that out and get back to you, but I don't have that.
If we speak generally without a specific number, if we were to 2% cap and we didn't have any proposed increase in levy, but yet all those wonderful 4 years that we did save and have a 0 caught up with us. So this year we're introducing a 0. How do we know that we're not going to bank for a couple more years and then in the 5th year or so whack the residents of the township again?
Again, we had a 7.5 cent increase. I don't know what you're referring to about banking and using the bank.
That was terminology used, Mr.
The bank is
Carter.
established by the State of New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. It's applied to every single municipality the same.
Okay, but again, if we're introducing a 0 increase, and next year we do 0 again, and it looks all good until you got to pay the piper, and we paid the piper, so of those years, 1 year wasn't a 0 increase, but it was made up for the zeros. I mean, we're starting to, are we beginning the same cycle all over again?
The bank is state law. It's not something we apply for. It's applied to each municipality by the state. It's uniformly applied.
Well then, if that is the case, and we're doing that quote-unquote within the law, I don't think there's much of a celebration for 0 today, because it'll come back again. I don't have a crystal ball either.
What the amount to be raised is, and it's a 0 increase over the prior year amount to be raised. You're the one saying celebration, I don't know.
I just heard flowers being thrown around for what a wonderful job, and it sounded good the first 4 years, but last year was not, there was no flowers blooming in Gloucester Township over that.
You asked a question, I answered.
And I appreciate that, thank you. Everyone have a good night, be safe.
Pete?
Pete Heinball, Morningstar Court, Sicklerville. Just as a reference, percentage-wise, last year's increase was 8.8%. As a percent, it was 8.8%. And another comment, that state law allows you to bank the increases that aren't unused in previous years, but doesn't compel you to use them.
I didn't say that.
I know,
I said the
I'm-
bank is established by the state.
It's-
Now, unlike that, on the appropriation side, the municipality can adopt a COLA ordinance, which we do, which allows us to go to the 3.5%. That's strictly for the appropriation side,
Right.
and without the COLA ordinance, you're not permitted to bank. The levy bank is state calculated and is applied to every municipality the same regardless. No one has the option to reject it or accept it. It is there.
It's there, but you don't have to utilize it. You don't have to increase a tax rate using
You
those
have the
banks.
option
Yeah, you have
of
the option.
increasing the rate up to
Yeah,
the
you do.
2% cap and
Right.
using the bank.
You do have that
as a
option.
to you. That
You
is
do have
the
that option. We chose that option
Every
last year.
municipality has that option.
Yep, and you chose, yeah, so we chose that last year to raise it to 8.8%
You
increase.
do lose. You lose it after a certain point in time.
It's still not, yeah, that's all state regulated, right, but nothing says you must use it. It allows you to, but that's up to the municipality to choose to.
If it's available, you're permitted to
Yes.
use it.
Do you have any, in the big picture, in the full picture, do we have an idea of what the assessed values are across the township at this point?
The value of the township is $4,447,441,000.
Is that higher or lower than last year?
It is higher by approximately 40, looks to me like about 41 million.
Was higher. So in the big picture, tax rates will actually go down with a 0% increase.
You're probably correct.
In the big picture.
You're probably correct.
Okay. Very slightly, I mean, less.
Very slightly.
Yeah, okay.
Again, you know that I speak of the levy, I don't speak.
Yes,
of
you
the
speak
rate.
levy, 0 increase.
And I've been
If
very-
assessed values are higher, by just straight math,
I've been very pointed in making
yeah,
sure
yep,
that.
I understand that. But if assessed values are higher, straight math says, overall, the tax rate will be slightly lower. The rate will be slightly lower.
That mathematically, you're
Yeah.
correct.
Next topic, SRO. Do we have an update where we are with the shortfall payment from the Gloucester Township Board of Education on the SRO payment?
Yeah, Pete, I could just tell you from my standpoint, Ellen Reese, the president of the Board of Education, reached out to me.
Okay.
She had some questions and some concerns about our last meeting. That's the council workshop meeting. And so her and I talked about it at great length. Actually, it was last night. And I've asked via the meeting, at the workshop meeting, that I've encouraged and asked Mr. Cardis to establish a itemized proposal for the police presence as the SRO officers for the school boards, so that from this point forward, I'm not talking about the past dollars, but for this point and for their budget, that they can see what the costs are. So we did discuss that at our workshop. I've encouraged Mr. Cardis to do that. Mrs. Reese felt that was a good way to get from the point, and I think our solicitor is the one who said, moving forward, we should have a proposal so that they know exactly what the dollars are. And then they can handle, the administration can handle, continue to work with the school board to resolve the other monies.
Okay.
So I know Mrs. Reese is going to be talking to the school board members as well. So
This discussion and this proposal that may come out of that relates to the 2015-16 school year?
whatever they're budgeting now for, Tom, what
Yeah,
is that?
2015.
Budget for 15, 16 right now.
Okay. And that starts, what, April for them, Tom?
It would start in September.
September?
Right.
Okay.
So it was still unresolved, the
As far
short.
as the back dollars, it is, I know, I believe Mr. Cardis was at a meeting, but I don't think anything got resolved.
No, nothing was resolved.
So they are, and I asked our solicitor to continue to work with the school board to try to keep this moving in the right direction. But from this point forward, I've asked Mr. Cardis, again, we've discussed it as council at the workshop, to put together a proposal explicitly putting down just for the SRO officers what the cost would be. Okay.
So we have the $240,000 payment that was what the Board of Education decided on their own was the full payment for.
That's what they came up with.
Yeah,
yes.
for 13-14. Gloucester Township has not accepted that as full payment at this
We're
point.
still seeking the $60,000.
Correct.
And we're also looking for the 300, well, right now it's
150,000
for half of the year for the 14.
And in Gloucester Township's mind, thought process, has the calendar, as a school year 14-15, that SRO contract been executed? I mean, meeting of the minds for 14-15.
Well, we provided the service, and so I believe there was communication with what the cost was going to be with the school board. So I believe that we felt that we gave the service, and so they will continue to work on it. I think we all have the same goal, and that's the protection of our children. I know the police department has designed a wonderful program. They put a lot of effort into it. I know when they approached the mayor and the chief, and I know that when they approached the school board, they were happy with it. I don't know who they met with, but I know that everybody was happy with the program. So I'm confident that between the Board of Education and administration, they'll rectify the past dollars, and I'm confident the school board will do diligence and decide what they want to do in the future.
Okay. So in your mind, we're not putting children's lives at risk? Don't answer
No.
that, I'm just,
I
didn't like that statement last
everybody-
week. That was a ridiculous statement last meeting.
But no, you know, Ellen and I talked, and we both agree that the children is, that the protection of the children and the safety of those young individuals is
Yeah.
paramount, so.
So no one's looking to put children's lives at risk. I agree. Final question, and you probably expected this question, GTMUA. You saying just, Mr. Solicitor just said you got these documents today? Is this
This afternoon,
That's
this afternoon.
terribly behind schedule of what we were thinking we would get these GTMUA documents, isn't it? A good week and a half or so behind schedule, and in my mind, 2 weeks behind when they could have reasonably been provided, but go ahead.
I can't answer that, but we sent them a letter February 19th, demand of the letters I read at the last meeting. I think I read all the items that we were seeking. And they were dropped off this afternoon. So I haven't had a chance to go through them yet. I have them all here. I don't think every question that I read off has been provided, so we have to go through that.
So we still, well, you'll look at it closer, but we still may not have received everything that's been requested, is what you're,
I have to go through it.
as the,
Council President just requested that I send another letter on this other issue. But I do that.
whether the contractor's billings for 60 hours that were inadequately documented, was that included in the information that was provided?
That is of the consultant.
Yes.
I believe you asked for the contractor, consultant, billings, invoices.
Yeah, I asked for a copy of the initial resolution of appointment pursuant to the Title 40A, which is the procurement statute. Copy of billing and vouchers by Ben Zangi and Strategic Management related to the initial appointment. Copy of the RFQ for computer software consultant. Copy of the response to the RFQ. Copy of letter transmittal and email transmittal to GTMUA board members and or GTMUA's administrative personnel by responding bidders. Copy of resolution of appointment to Ben Zangi or Strategic Management Solution pursuant to the RFQ. Copy of billing invoices and vouchers for payment to Ben Zangi and Strategic Management, Data Management. Copy of progress report and completion report filed by Ben Zangi Strategic Management Solutions.
And you haven't reviewed-
Received vouchers and weekly billings that were submitted. I have not gone through them in detail this time.
At the last meeting, I expressed my concern about the adequacy of this investigation, some conflict of interest, and members of GTMUA who hold PAC officer positions and members of this board who are this body who benefit from those PACs, and some members of this body who have served on those PACs or related to those who serve on the PACs. So this, to me, it's dragged on longer than it should have already. So it's only reinforcing my concerns about the adequacy of this type of investigation. When to me, when you see that 60-hour per week billings over a number of consecutive weeks that are undocumented, that it's rather obvious we have a lack of control at the minimum, maybe illegal activity at the other end and multiple people engaged in illegal activity, possibly. And if you look at the invoices, it's rather strong evidence to me that that's the case. But minimum lack of controls and lack of oversight, and the fact that we're dragging our feet to obtain these documents, review them, and announce any findings or preliminary findings, or announce even the scope of investigation or what you're going to dig into further, it's reinforcing my concerns.
Well, Pete, I don't know what I would say to convince you. I can tell you we're not dragging our feet. I've asked the solicitor to talk to the solicitor. He's done that. He sent a letter out to the solicitor. He just received it probably in a 2-week time frame. The documents 2+ weeks. So I can tell you he will be looking at them. Our goal is to find out what took place, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to take a look at it, make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do.
Do you have a estimate or a time frame that you,
How long do you think it's going to take you, David?
a goal for a time frame?
Well, I think there are material that I'm still going to need. This is the packet of documentation that I dropped off. I skimmed through it, but not in any real detail. I will tell you, and I told you last meeting, I'll do diligence on this before you judge and attack my integrity or the integrity of this council. I will do my job as an attorney. Wherever that leads, that leads. And if it comes to a point where the perception dictates someone else looking into it, that will be my recommendation from a perception point of view. But wherever this leads me will be my comment to this council, and I'm sure that's what this council is looking for, and I'm sure that's what this council will respond to. So I feel there is more information that is needed, and I'm sure council's going to feel the same when I start to go through this and comment to council president and other members. I know what they're looking for, and we will proceed with this.
So Dave, would it be fair to say that could you give us, the council, a preliminary report by the workshop?
Sure, yes.
By when? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, Pete, by the workshop. So, anybody on council have any concern with that?
Like 3 or 4 weeks then.
So, yeah, so it'd be 3 weeks. And I think it gives you, Dave, time to review it and also ask for additional information if you need it. It also gives you time to look for the things with the former executive director, and hopefully we'll have a pretty robust report that you can fill us in on.
I appreciate you setting the time. And since it's a workshop meeting, I guess whatever is found and reported then will become something that's discussed in the more public forum of the next
It will be
regular.
discussed at the workshop, which will be a public forum, correct?
Right. It's not recorded and minutes aren't as robust and things like that as a regular.
It's our recorded of our workshop, correct? Yeah.
So that's when there will be no other announcement of the results of the investigation other than at the workshop.
Well, I'm
But you're
trying
saying,
I'm trying to be fair to the solicitor to give him time to review it. And then, obviously, if he has something sooner that is of dire need, I'm sure he will contact me and we could then discuss it. I don't believe there's any, I think it would be at a public meeting.
Sure.
I don't know if there's any reason to have a closed meeting unless there's some legal implications, but I'm assuming that we would be doing it at a public meeting, Pete. It's about finding out and taking action.
and making something better, fixing something that needs fixed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Pete, thank you. Joanne?
Evening, Joanne Carr, Timber Birch. Just a matter of clarification, really, on ordinance 1507, the one with the speed limit. On the paper, it was saying that it's the speed limit reduction on Ariel Road.
Yeah, that was an error.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you
It's
said
Lower
it was
Landing,
on Lower
correct.
Landing.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all I needed.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Linda?
Linda Musser, Cameron Circle. I just wanted to ask if, on the, just as a follow-up to the first portion of the meeting, could I get a breakdown, Tom, of the money from the cash call from 2010, how that was expended, and also the one that we just had, the cash call?
Well, I mean, I can give you the amounts that we paid, which you probably already know. If I don't have the report from the trust, as far as how the monies were actually spent, I can't provide that.
Could somebody get it from the trust?
I will ask our solicitor to reach out to our trust
Okay.
and try to obtain the information you requested.
Okay, because I think that, in fairness to the taxpayers, they ask us for this money, the money's given to them, and we should be given a fair and accurate accounting of it.
Not a problem.
Okay, and then the other question that I have is, I think it was back in August, there was a shared service agreement. I think it was with, I don't remember if it was with the county in Cherry Hill or Gloucester Township and the county for a pothole filler.
It's a shared service for us assisting a couple.
Oh, with the school board. I think it was with the school
We
board.
helped, we helped, I believe, two
Pine Hill, right?
municipalities, no, not Pine Hill,
Not Pine
it was,
Hill.
I think it was Cherry Hill, wasn't it?
it was Runnymede and, it was either Belmar.
Stratford?
It was Stratford.
It's Stratford?
Yeah. and
Then they're not using that pothole filler because
Well, I
Atlantic
think our guys
Avenue
would be
is a
doing
mess.
it.
Yeah, we did it on overtime, they paid all the costs, the material, the labor, everything, the
Right.
gas, they incurred all.
Okay.
And the other one you're talking about is the Black Horse Pike region, we did use the machine for their parking areas, that might be when you're referring to.
Okay, so that pothole filler that they have isn't for use for the roads around here?
Yes, it's owned by us.
It's owned by Gloucester Township? Are we going to get potholes filled in? Choose Landing Road.
All day today, that's what we're doing.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
we
using
have-
it on county roads. We need a
Well,
plan.
I did talk to the mayor about that, and we were concerned about some serious situations on the county roads. So we may have filled a couple in with regard to coal patch, which is, as you may know, is a very temporary situation. Our roads, we were out hot patching, 2 trucks were hot patching, and the pothole repair truck was out also.
Okay, because I know on Kelly Driver, they had
took care of
cones
all-
there
they're
because
all done.
that was really bad.
That was finished, that was done.
Okay, but it is our pothole filler, so we hopefully would get priority because there are some that are going to be sinkholes if they don't fix.
We have prioritized ourselves. In those
Okay.
situations where we provided those services, we were not going to be using the truck. It was, I believe it was designated for a Friday. We were not using the truck at the time, and it was overtime that they paid, the other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, we close the second public portion. Polling of directors and council, please.
Mr. Lesniak?
I have nothing to report.
Chief Earl?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Farlinger?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Curtis?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, I'd like to thank the Public Works for their efforts with snow removal, and also the police with their efforts on National Night Out. Thank the residents for coming out and staying and enjoying the holiday. Have a good evening.
Mr. Feiler?
Yes, I would like to thank the police department for the job that they did on National Night Out. I went around Wilton and we had excellent turnout from the residents and the police. They did an excellent job. I also would like to thank Public Works for the job they did on snow removal. We have a snow removal budget each year, and we can call out civilian contractors. They've only been called out last weekend, that was the first time. Otherwise, the Public Works employees did roads, and they did a good job. Thank you.
Mrs. Stroud?
Congratulations to the police for their outstanding efforts with National Night Out again. And thank you to Public Works also. I thought they did an excellent job this past weekend with the storm. We were able to be out in it driving and saw them around all the time. So thank you.
Mrs. Stroud?
No, that was me.
I'm sorry.
Second.
I just want to say the same thing. Congratulations to the police department for their National Night Out. It was a wonderful evening. And Public Works is doing a great job. And hopefully we're done. I hope. And have a great night. Mr. Mercado?
Congratulations to the police department and to Chief Earl. It's a reflection of his leadership. Also, again, thanks to Public Works and the great job they did. And also to Mr. Carson, the administration, on putting together a zero tax levy. There's another flower for you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Mr. Bianchi?
I'd like to thank all the residents for attending tonight's meeting. I too want to give my congratulations to the chief and his staff and the fine men and women of Gloucester Township Police Department for another job well done. I also want to congratulate Tom and the mayor for again having a zero tax increase for the levy. And thank you, Tom, for that, for your hard work. I also ask that, some of you may know I work at Temple University Hospital, and the day that police officer got killed, I happened to be standing there as everything was happening, not at the site where he died, but obviously at the hospital where he did die, and at Temple. And I could tell you, it just gives you a bad feeling in your stomach. And I just think we need to get back, and I applaud our police department, community policing, getting back with the residents and trying to stem this violence that we're seeing all too much. I don't even want to look at the news anymore because of the type of violence that we're seeing out there in all different areas of our country. So when you get down on your knees and you're talking to our great Lord, give a prayer to that police officer and his 9-year-old and his 1-year-old. He was going to get his 9-year-old a gift, and unfortunately he was in that bad situation. But it also goes to people like in trauma, all the nurses and physicians that deal with these day in and day out. Some great individuals there as well. So when you get that moment, remember all those folks. With that, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Have a good night. Thank you.